So, welcome to Platform Stories. I'm Christina, co founder of Mesh Cloud, and with me here is Jörg, my co founder and our
Hello,
CEO.
everybody. Great to see you again.
And it's incredible. We've already reached episode 5 of our Platform Stories podcast, in which we share platform stories of the platform community. We are live right now here on YouTube. So, hi for everyone who's tuning in. You can share your questions in the chat. We will have some time in the end. Hopefully, we should have some time in the end to answer them. And yeah, you will be able to listen to us later on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, wherever you listen or watch your podcasts. And yeah, of course, we would be very grateful if you hit the follow button on the show, as this helps us to keep going. And now I would say we get started with our topic for today, which is European cloud sovereignty. And it's an honor to welcome today's guest, Francisco Romero from Tietoevry. Welcome to Platform Stories, Francisco. It's great to have you here.
Likewise, it's a great pleasure to be with you here today, guys. And definitely looking forward to having a good conversation about the sovereign topic, which is really close to my heart.
Yeah, great. I think we will have that. The First of all, thanks for joining us also for this topic. I enjoyed our conversations in the past, and that's why I'm also glad to talk today in front of this audience. But first of all, to set the stage, can you tell us a bit about your function, your environment, so that we can learn how you work,
Sure.
what you see at work, and that we understand what experiences you have.
Yeah. So thanks, Jörg. I work here in Tietoevry. First of all, a bit for kind of knowledge. Who is Tietoevry? Tietoevry is a fairly large IT service provider in the Nordics. We work in the three countries: Norway, Sweden, and Finland. And we deliver all kinds of IT services from workplace services to infrastructure service, cloud service, and all that. We are about 8,000 people or so in this part where I'm working. There are many divisions and different locations. We definitely have a strong location in Europe, and that's what makes us very interesting or interested also in the sovereignty topic because it's our kind of sweet spot. We'll talk more about that later, of course. Personally, I've been working for the last 4 or 5 years or so in the sovereign solutions, which were not called sovereign a few years back. The sovereign word came in 3+ years ago, but it was building a lot in the capabilities that we already have. And then we
Mhm.
realized that there is an angle here that is very relevant for many of our customers. It's a sovereign angle, and then let's talk about sovereignty as a specific thing that our solutions capabilities resolve for the customer. So myself have been working on building solutions, driving the go-to-market, helping positioning Tietoevry as a provider of these services and these solutions for our customers, and definitely having a conversation with the actors to understand where we should be taking these solutions, what things are the right things for us to develop, starting from the basic infra to more advanced things. As Jörg, we have the conversation with you about developers
Mhm.
platform and all that cool stuff. Very soon coming the AI of things, of course. So that's the what I've been working on and helping the customers and the organization.
And maybe if you can give us some maybe a number or so, how many different organizations or what kind of focus areas you're in, so that we have an idea of the organizations you see.
Yeah, so we have first of all, from the customer's perspective, we typically work with medium and large corporations, right? First of all, so it's important to understand that we are not working with everybody. So that's our focus customers, that large corporations that require a bit more special setup in their infrastructure services. That's from the customer segment we do. Having said that, we work across all the industries, public sector, banking sector, retail and manufacturing sector. We work across all those. What we have internally is a number of different technology capabilities, and we like to think that because our customers are special, because these medium and large customers, they typically have very special needs, and they it's not like the one size fits all. It never works. So we want to help them in the technology choices. So what we do is we analyze a customer, and we think, okay, for this customer, based on their requirements and needs, we can choose from a number of tools and capabilities that we, of course, maintain, meaning that we have competence in different technologies, different ways of working, public cloud, private cloud, etc. And then depending on the customer, we help them. Myself, of course, I'm more focusing on the sovereign cloud. So how we help customers that need a cloud solutions in a sovereign context. So that's but it's part of the overall ecosystem. And of course, Tietoevry is one of the strengths that we can help them across the board, not just in one thing. Yeah.
Okay, so the holistic view, understanding the context is very important, as we know here as well at Mesh Cloud. So before we dive deeper into the topic of sovereignty, which is our main focus today, let's do a quick round so that we can peek a little aspect and get to know you a bit better. And I give it to you, Christina, for that.
Yeah, so we are here at Platform Stories, and of course, there's a lot of different definitions of platform and what people understand. So, what's your definition of a platform?
In one word, a platform to me is an enabler. So the platform is hardly something that produces something, but it enables things to happen for the right people on the right dimension. But it kind of, one word, enablement. It enables things to happen for the right thing.
Okay, perfect. You can do one sentence as well. But the next one word might be a bit too hard. Well, then next question would be, how many organizations or customers have you supported along the way to build and operate their platforms?
Personally, probably around 20, 30 in these infrastructure services. So that would be about, yeah.
That's already a great pool of experience that you have
Yeah.
gained there, especially if they all come with their different and specific requirements. Which clouds and platform technologies do you see most frequently in your environment?
So the predominant cloud platform in Nordics, at least, is public cloud, and I would say more specifically Microsoft public cloud. That seems to be like, I won't say the standard, but it's like pretty much the winner. And then we have, our point is that we complement that with private or like a clouds outside the hyperscalers. That's what we call the sovereign cloud, essentially. And that comes with a number of technologies. If I may mention two key technologies for those, I would say is VMware, Broadcom by VMware, or VMware by Broadcom nowadays, and Red Hat technologies. Those two are probably the most relevant.
Yeah, that matches. And then what are the like one or two biggest challenges that you see at your clients to when it comes to increasing sovereignty and like going into this field?
I think at the moment probably uncertainty is a big thing because things are changing so much so fast, and we have the technology changes and we have the geopolitical changes, and nobody knows how things are going to go. So everybody's like looking for answers. So I think we need to find them together.
Then I think you are in a great position to to help them there.
I want to
That's
think so,
good news for us, good news for
yes.
you.
Yeah, let's start right away with decreasing uncertainty for our listeners. Let's start with some background. When did you first start working on the topic of digital sovereignty? So tell us a bit when you remember back, when did that come up? Maybe it was called differently. So also, how did it change over time? What are consistent parts that have been there for years? Maybe you can talk a bit about your experience.
So I think if I think about how this sovereignty thing has evolved, I think it started like in the 2016, 15, 16, when the European Union started talking about GDPR. So when the GDPR thing came, that was the first kind of driver towards what we now call sovereignty, because it was the first time, technology had been there. It had the cloud thing, everybody needs to move to the cloud and so on. And then there came and we are very good in Europe about doing that, thinking about, stepping for a second, raising our head about technology stuff and thinking like, what does this mean? Now it's happening with the AI, the same. But at the time in the 15 was the cloud was going on ever. And then everybody, oh, let's do everything cloud. But then they would go, okay, we have cloud, yeah, we have data. But what happens with the people? What happened with the information of the people that puts the data in the cloud? That was the first concern that led to the GDPR. And if you think about GDPR, it's about data protection. I think this culture plays a big role because in Europe, it's the culture about individual, and the individual is keen, and the core of European culture is about protecting the individual, and that's great. That's a great place to be, actually, in my mind. That will make it special and different from the rest of, well, not for the, but makes a very special environment in the context, and that's what started the sovereignty. Then, of course, it evolved, and things like the Cloud Act from the US had a big drive, because then suddenly, it wasn't so easy to, it made the what GDPR had started, it made it even more clear. Okay, so what happens if I put my data in an American company? Does that mean that, the American government suddenly has something to say about that data? And that's where you start moving thinking, okay, then suddenly you realize, well, you want to protect privacy. There are drivers out there that make protection of your privacy and making sure that who owns the data is a bit unclear. So we need an answer for these things. And that's where sovereignty came in. So basically it built on things we had already. We had already companies delivering infrastructure as a service, cloud services from the European context. But then the drivers made it clear we need to package this and give it a context to answer the need of organizations to protect the data privacy and the data, eventually, sovereignty. So then we came to the sovereignty concept. We need to have solutions that match the need of protecting that data privacy and the ownership of the data. That was evolving from the 615, 17, and I think the first time I hear about the sovereign word was about 20, something like that, 2020. That's when everything, okay, we need to
I
call
think
this
it was
something
also
special. Let's
induced a
call it
bit by
sovereignty.
the COVID crisis, right? Because suddenly there were these interruptions of supply chains, and then
Yeah,
people started to think, oh, we are very dependent, more in a material way first.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it probably had an effect also on to consider information technology.
Yeah, I think then what sovereignty began as a data privacy thing evolved as a kind of, okay, like you said, like we need to secure the supply chain of services,
Yeah.
because otherwise we are not sovereign. So it expanded from just being the data privacy concern to how we can make sure that we are empowered as an organization, whoever that organization may be, to make sure that we are on top of the thing and we are kind of in control of what happens to our services and data. So it expanded a bit from data privacy to instead of things like data resiliency, data availability, those kind of things, which kind of give you the whole picture of sovereignty in that sense.
It's interesting because I just think back to our beginnings here at Mesh Cloud, because we first tried to launch an open cloud federation based on OpenStack and Cloud Foundry
Mhm.
in Germany.
Yep.
But it was as an answer to the NSA scandal,
Yep.
where we had Edward Snowden revealing American practices in terms of dealing with private
Yeah.
data. And that's probably had an effect on the GDPR as well,
Yes,
on its
exactly.
initiation. And it's interesting how it's interweaved and how we are at this point again today.
Yes.
So yeah, looking at today, what would you say today with a fresh view, current events happening? Um, how do you consider sovereignty today, and what do you think is the
So,
what? How did it
so I,
evolve, the
th-
concept?
I think it's it's because it's a moving thing. I think the fact that it's expanding from just data privacy, just concern to sustainability of the data, and resiliency of the data, there is a lot to do with how organizations do their risk management of things. So it's become a thing that you need to take to the CIO agenda. Okay, as a CIO of this company, how do I focus? How do I manage my risks in regards of
Yeah.
securing the services? And that's where sovereign cloud comes in, because it gives you options. Uh,
Mhm.
Today, for example, if you think about what's happening with geopolitical situation and all these things, we see some companies are thinking, okay, we really like cloud and we are very happy being in public cloud. And that's, who would say no? I mean, the number of things you can do and the ability to develop technology in public cloud, it cannot be met because the resources they have and all that. But then I think, okay, but what if, there is the what if? What if something happens and I need a plan B? What if, for some reason, be that, and this, of course, we need to talk also about disasters like earthquake and this kind of stuff, which has always been on the table, never very like natural disaster, but now there is also the geopolitical crisis that may happen. I've heard crazy stuff like we will need to use planes. to, a plan B could be we have a plane and we shift our host from Azure data center to our country. These kind of plan Bs, I've heard about this organization that are thinking this could be a plan B. Of course, there are other plan Bs, but it emphasizes the fact that today sovereignty is a lot about securing that the risk that the enterprise have to protect their data and their business are well taken care of. And in that sense, sovereign cloud is a nice way that can complement public cloud and enhance your level of resiliency towards any kind of disaster, be that natural, political, or whatever.
Yeah, I always think of it as keeping the freedom to operate for a company, right? So that you can still
Exactly.
decide the way you need or want things to go, and in the end, a form of liberty as well, right?
I mean, George, I think that's spot on. I think freedom of choice is. I love what you just said because I always thought that it's about giving choices. And after all, being sovereign means that you are responsible and free to choose the
Yeah.
way you want to manage things, right? And I totally agree. Sovereign cloud gives you options to be more freedom and independent to choose what you want to do and how you want to work.
Yeah, we have a lot of experience with that. So we understand. Okay, we need to be somehow able to act. But what does it mean for the different countries that you know? And we would like to learn a bit more about how it's deal with the Nordics.
Absolutely. So think about Nordics. I mean, geographics and context is everything, right? So think about Nordics. Huge, huge countries, lots of extension, very few people. So that's very, very important driver. And these people, they they need things to happen here
Hmm.
on the phone, right? So meaning that the need of digital services in Nordics because of the distances, because it's not easy just to drop by the local public officer to do my stuff with him or to the bank because there isn't. The next one is maybe 100 kilometers
That's the
away.
difference compared to Germany, I think.
I wish we had
Now
that
we know
distance
it.
here.
Now we know it.
Exactly. So, so that these things are setting the scene, and just to give you an example, like we had this customer case in the north of Sweden. So they wanted cloud, right? But unfortunately, there wasn't no cloud around the north of Sweden
Mm,
because it's a bit far away. It's like 1,000 kilometers away from Stockholm, where you have more of the public cloud data centers. So there are issues like with latency, and you want the data to be like fairly close and so on.
mm,
But they still wanted cloud, and they were in a situation where they were like a lot of municipalities having very scattered, a bunch of computers here. There wasn't very efficient to operate, to manage, very expensive, let alone sustainability wise. It's very unsustainable if you need to have like 30 different computing rooms consuming electricity versus having everything nicely packed and tied in one place. So sustainability is very important also, by the way, in the sovereign agenda, sustainable electricity and all those things. So there was no answer for them other than you have to build the cloud where they are. So that was to me another very nice format of sovereign cloud too. Like, and for them, it wasn't so much the kind of the regulation only, but it was the fact that they need there. So, and that also addresses another very interesting topic of the sovereign cloud, which is the data gravity. I also see sovereign connected with the data gravity, meaning like the data is what it is. And this we see more happening in the future. Like the data will happen wherever it happens. There is a huge data center from the hyperscalers, but that will not be the only place where data happens. We all know that there will be data growing exponentially outside, be that factories, hospitals, remote locations. So the need of having cloud solutions that address the need of having data hosted in those places. I also call it a bit of a sovereign case because once again, it's about empowering the organizations to use the right things, right? So That's a very common factor of the Nordics, that you need to have solutions that fit where you are when you need the data. So that's kind of driver in the whole Nordics. But then the kind of the regulation that varies a bit because there is a lot of perception. Because to begin with, as you know, we as of today we still don't have our legislation or firm regulation of European Union laws that says this is a sovereign cloud. There are like recommendations, there are observations, there are clearly common sense. Well, if your company is owned by an American company, your data, the company where you have your data is an American company, probably you have some concerns about the sovereignty. That kind of stuff is obvious. But as of today, as far as I know, there is no regulation that you cannot have your things. If you take a look at the highest standards of the European Union recommendations, which are coming up, they say even using US technology or non-European technology, hardware or software may be considered as not 100% sovereign. It's not yet the law, if you want, it's not a must, but it's a consideration. And that would be a different level of sovereignty compared to what we're using today.
If I can jump in quickly,
Sure.
I think it's a bit like security, right? You have a certain level or that you achieve or can achieve, but it's also always under economics constraints. All right.
Exactly.
So how much can you afford, and do you need to afford as well? What's the
Exactly.
risk you accept?
Exactly. So in that open source, of course, an answer for many of these things, but open source has also its things, and if you want to deliver service with open source, there are considerations about who is behind those services, and that's also a driver for us as a service provider. Like, okay, can you rely 100% on open source, having a piece of software that nobody will give you support? You need to balance that too. It's like you say, I mean, it's like how much you can afford in your path, what is sufficient versus reasonable, sensible, and whatnot. So thinking about that, because there is not like a clear, firm regulation frame that says this is right, this is wrong in sovereignty, there is a lot about perception. So, and that changes from country to country. Coming back to your question about how this looks like in the countries, right? So, in Finland, for example, I would say that all the public organizations are fairly okay to use public cloud. They don't really see a big problem. You can see that the public administration for the government services, they are relying a lot on public cloud. They want to use public cloud as much as possible. There is a need of they have, of course, understand that some of the data cannot be in public cloud, but other than that, they are very comfortable with that. Whereas in Sweden, I would say that they're a bit more risk averse to this thing, and there is a bit more aware to be like, for example, in Sweden, I've seen cases where they refuse to use Teams, for example, because, well, if we use Teams, essentially all our data is going through an American host.
Yeah, I mean, we have that here as well with government organization where there's no Teams.
Yeah. So, and I totally understand why. I mean, it's a kind of, I mean, if I myself use Teams every day, but it's.
I read this message the other day. I haven't checked it and confirm, but it was on Heise that Microsoft switched off the mailbox of a prosecutor at the I don't know the English name, the International Court of Law in Den Haag.
And Den Haag.
Was, yeah. So and that was it's kind of an. As I said, I'm not sure about the backgrounds total, but it's a worrying thought, right? That they could do it and they needed to switch to other mail providers quickly, and it kind of delayed the whole process. And if legal period or termination deadlines are involved, then it might become a big problem.
But the question is, I mean, how do you? It's like I said, you need alternatives, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
they had them, they got them, but it delayed and
it delays things, and that's the whole thing. What about the Teams? You stop using Teams like this in Germany. So what did they use instead? Because it's not so easy. Like
it's sometimes terrible as well in terms of
Exactly.
like being able to communicate in an
Yeah.
easy way. So that's really something you have to consider. That's why I also liked your explanation, right, of the practical reasons why it
Yes.
might make sense to do things locally, because that really is an additional driver for more sovereignty, but it like also helps your business and it helps you to survive and to operate. So I think that's
Yes.
really critical that we don't fall into that kind of stagnation where we say, is that sovereign enough? And if it's not, we just don't do anything. Like the operation part of having that freedom to operate and having that choice means also using potentially solutions, but being aware of the risk that comes with them, and then being
Yeah.
able to switch or to change or to evaluate
Exactly.
alternative options. Yeah.
And I think it gives because we are in the European context, of course, it's a very good opportunity to develop European solutions. It's
Yeah.
like, I mean, it's so nice, to rely on the ready to use and very easy to use American solutions. It actually, we can see that in many ways, not just on the technology, right? But you know, why don't we do our own solutions? And I think
100%.
that's
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm
It's
not sure, going a bit off to, I don't know if it's a topic, but anyway, like thinking about, I
go
mean,
ahead.
because I'm not into that, but if I think about like as in Tietoevry, creating service and solutions for sovereign things, I don't think we have had a lot of help from the European Union, like funding, sponsoring,
Mhm.
money
Hmm.
coming to us to develop technology that will help these things. There may be, we haven't applied for it. I give you that
Yeah,
because I'm.
Ep.5 is also, but it takes years. So we have
Then
some
again, so
experience.
if as a European Union you see here, and actually because all this GDPR and all this already is very much driven by European Union concerns, and I totally respect those concerns. So to me, it would make sense that there is more active kind of support for developing technologies. There was this initiative sponsored, I think it was sponsored by the European Union. How do you call it? This was it Gaia project? I think it was Gaia.
Gaia X.
Gaia X.
Yeah,
Gaia
that's
X, exactly this one. And I met the guy
we know
behind
that.
this Francesco, this Italian. Anyway,
Yeah.
Francesco.
Yeah. Born names.
It was a fantastic idea, but they suddenly like kind of calm down. So I haven't heard anything about it for like 1 year or something.
I
And
think
it
one
was
challenge is really that they like to, I mean, even if there is funding and there are these concepts developed, what should really happen is that they also use them, right? That they also
yes,
implement it, that they do not just support it and fund it, but that they also, because they would be a great um, customer for these kinds of solutions, right? They should be the ones implementing sovereign solutions and using these services. And that would be something that would really help all the organizations involved in that and really strengthen um,
exactly.
the European ecosystem, but while like really looking at the market demand and making sure that something is built that is really needed by
Yeah.
companies that are using the cloud and not just nice
Yeah. I think
on paper.
in the end
Exactly.
the market has to decide, or it will decide if you
Yep.
want
Yeah,
it
yeah,
or
yeah.
not. So that's the proof. And that's also like when I think about what we discussed, like having your own clouds or local clouds, private clouds,
Mm,
we learned to build MeshStack, our solution, in that way by our customers, because we
yes.
saw they wanted it. They wanted not just public cloud hyperscaler, put everything in there, but also the ability to choose alternatives. And that's why you also have today this possibility to create your own platforms in
Mm,
MeshStack and manage the whole solution park basically.
mm,
Because it's a demand that we see with our
yeah.
customers in the market, and I think that's a great way to approach it, because obviously because that gives you this freedom of choice in terms of which platform to use.
Exactly. And I think it gives you you can fine tune. I mean, like one very cool case we are working on, it's when you mix things.
Mhm.
Like it's not like black and white. It's not one or,
Yeah,
but
Exactly.
it's one and
Yeah.
the other. And that's where really things get very interesting when you see, okay, once again, I'm not competing. I'm not competing with public cloud at all. This is not about the competition. It's
I mean
about
you're
choices.
called hybrid cloud service owner, right? So
Exactly.
for a reason.
And for a reason, by the way, hybrid, multi-cloud, everybody confused. Let's get
Yeah,
the terminology straight. For me, hybrid is when you have
multi-platform.
multi-platform. So let's talk about multi-platform. From sovereign cloud, I would say there are two things. There is cloud and there is sovereign. So it's a cloud service. First, it's cloud services,
Mm.
cloud deliveries, and then it has a sovereign flavor to it or sovereign terms and conditions to it. But essentially, it's a cloud service. The service is cloud. Sovereign is just terms and conditions to it,
Mm.
but it's cloud. So when you think about the hybrid cases or the multi-cloud, multi-platform services, it's great because you have like, and we see this a lot in all the countries that, especially for public sector, also financial sector, that they want to use the public cloud for the development because there is so much resources you can pull there, so much ready service that you can easily build and put together. But
Mm.
then your production data, you don't want it there, right? But you still want everything connected. So that's a beautiful story. You have your development and yes, this is the developers platform, right? That one of our favorite topics probably. So you have your developers platform that span across the two worlds. You have the development in public cloud, and you have the production in kind of a sovereign cloud. It's all cloud
Mhm.
and it's all connected, and there are technologies and there are ready pieces that help you to do that.
Yeah, I mean
Containers,
that
etc.
is perfect, right? It just requires a certain level of maturity or supporting tooling to help the organizations manage that. Because if they start, they're like sometimes a bit overwhelmed in terms of, oh, now I
Yeah,
need to do like
I
yeah.
think
two
they
or
need a
three things.
platform actually.
That's another topic.
And
But I would like to circle back to
yeah,
our question because we left out Norway.
yeah, yep,
You
yep,
talked
yep,
about
yep.
Finland and Sweden, so maybe you can give us a couple of
Yeah,
insights into the Norwegian
yeah,
situation, and then
yeah,
yeah, we
yeah.
move
I
on
was
from
thinking
there.
the same. So 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 Norway, they are also very much into public cloud. I think Norway, they don't have a problem with public cloud. However, in Norway, what I think they are more thinking about the plan Bs. So Finland is like very lean for on public cloud, and the plan B, yeah, but maybe not so urgent. I'll tell you a couple things about Finland more, but just to finish this. Um, but then in Norway, Norway is a country very concerned with national security.
Hmm.
Okay, that's a very very top in the agenda of Norwegian people to think national security. It's very important for the whole country. So then they think about they are okay with public cloud, but they think about how we can make our solutions safe and ready. And for example, this case I was talking to you about, where we have a hybrid connection between that's a Norwegian case. That's a public organization in Norway that wanted to build a system for offering to the citizens digital authentication. You as a
Mhm.
citizen with this one code, yeah, you go one place, you're going to access public digital services. So they have built that in that way. Public cloud development, production in private cloud that we are helping them to hosting and so on. Um, so one important thing is that the level of regulation is very different per countries. So, and that also drives the discussion, right? So in Finland, it's a very strong centralized regulation for these things. So you have like a very, very well regulated systems in Finland. Actually, it's a central organization that owns this regulation, and it sets the requirement for people, for the different organizations. And everybody has the same requirements, which helps a lot because then you can, if you need to build a system against certain requirements, it's basically what you would expect the European Union has done, but they haven't. But in Finland, they have done it. So they have a
Mhm.
central body. They have a very well structured way of defining the requirements for different levels of security. And if you want to, if your business requires that, you know how it looks like, you know how to implement it. For us, it's very easy because as a service provider, we know exactly what to build. If you go to Sweden, it's completely different because there is just recommendations, but then basically it's up to the local instances like the municipalities or the region councils to define their security standards. And that makes it very complex because it's harder to fill a standard solution. And it's a bit the same in Norway too. In Norway, also the
Okay.
local administration is I don't know how it's in Germany, but this sets require
Yeah.
different setup for the providers like us. So.
Yeah, before we come to that, I think it's very funny that we have three different models of strategic approach in the
Yep.
three countries, right?
Yes.
It's
Yeah, I was
Yes.
also surprised.
Finland public cloud first
Yeah.
or mainly,
Culture,
and
man. It's
yeah,
culture. It's everything culture. Finnish
yeah,
people are like really love. Somebody said that Finnish people are the more law-abiding people in the world. Probably true. I'm not questioning. So they like structure, they like things very clear, black and white, and so on. Whereas in Sweden and Norway, it's a bit more the discussion. We need to
Mm.
discuss together to find a common understanding and do a more local agreement of things. So it drives the regulations too.
Yeah, so basically Finland public cloud, okay, Sweden more risk averse, and in Norway it's like take the advantages of both approaches
Yeah,
maybe.
it's about the data security. They're concerned about
Yeah,
data security
yeah,
and separation
security
share.
focus.
Okay, so you talked about the regulations. Are there any government initiatives or platform strategies in those countries that kind of support this sovereign cloud? How do you call it?
Agenda. What is your
Yeah.
favorite project, basically?
Yeah, I think the agenda is a good one. So I think Finland, like I said, is by far the easiest because they have so clear rules. Like this is they have mapped the you can find the NATO has also very clear the classification of data levels. So Finland has mapped very much those into particular implementation. There is a public organization that audits you. Actually, it's the same organization that gives you the license, the driving license, or make sure that
Okay, so
the
the
things,
TÜV
the traffic,
or something like that.
the
Yeah.
traffic organization, if you want, they will have the same guys that would audit your solution to be compliant against these security requirements. And they have very well, we have done many times. We have several times go through the audit. We have certified systems against those audits and so on. And what the beauty is, it allows you to build a shared environment because
Hmm.
all the customers that share the same requirements, you can put them in the same place and you can build a one-to-many. Whereas in Sweden, once again, it's harder. It's more like dedicated environment because the requirements are a bit different for every environment, for every municipality or region. So
So
it's
in
missing a
Finland,
bit.
the standard helps to accumulate demand, basically, and yeah,
Spot on.
yeah,
Spot on.
Would you
It
say
helps.
that also makes them more advanced in terms of implementation? Like if you had to compare, could you say which of the countries is basically more mature in their cloud implementation? Or if
Uh, this this I wouldn't. I think it helps in terms of standardization.
yeah.
So it's a clear picture what they need, and they know if for these systems we want to put them here, for this we want to put it there. And I'm talking a lot about the public sector, okay?
Yeah.
Then the financial is a bit something in between. Sometimes financials uses as a reference the same standard, but it's because it's convenient because it's well defined. You don't need to set their own requirements
Yeah,
to
I
already
think that
define them.
clarity can really help a
Yeah,
lot, right? I
yeah,
mean, we talked about the uncertainty and like being unsure about what can I do, what am I allowed to do, what not. That also slows things down because you have to
yeah.
evaluate a bit. So if you're clear, even if it's a bit restricted, you can like take conscious decisions and build a solution that works. And if you have the confidence that that works and that it's kind of in within the regulation, that certainly helps to move faster if there are these kind of blueprints that
Correct.
can be
Exactly.
applied.
And it does help a bit, of course, in moving the thing. So I think, if, for example, in Sweden, they are in and also in Norway, I think those guys are super creative. So I wouldn't say that they are not. They are very, very, very creative and very advanced on the way
Hmm.
they use cloud, but it's more scattered because there is a less of a central body that says how everything should look like.
yeah. Two questions come to my mind before we go on. The first is like, because you just said you talk mainly about the public sector, but do you feel a difference between public sector and private companies, or like large
Eh,
other companies
Yeah, I think that the public sector, I mean, because once
in
again,
terms of
sovereignty is
sovereignty?
about,
I mean,
exactly, because
yeah,
sovereignty is about data security, data protection, protection of the privacy of the individuals, and personal data, right? So, of course, the organizations in the public sector, health sector, typically would deal much more with personal data, tax
mm,
records, health records, etc. So there is a natural additional concern
Hmm.
in those organizations to make sure that the data they hold is your data, is my data, it's citizens' data. It's protected, and there are like as less risk as possible that the third party, external foreign party, could have anything to say about that data. So it's very natural that for the
mm,
public organizations And I think the extreme is healthcare, and that's kind
Yeah,
of
sure.
an own field. That's the information that, and that has a lot to do with actually with the AI of things, right? I mean, hopefully talk about that a bit.
Yes, we
And
will come
that's
to
where
that in a second. Yeah.
that you see that those organizations, uh, in my experience, most of the data for health organizations in Nordics is actually in the hospitals. So
Hmm.
typically, the hospitals have their own data center here in Nordics, at least, where they have the records like that you have access them from your personal systems and digital services and whatnot. But the actual data is very often stored in the hospitals, somewhere in the basement.
Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering because from Germany it's the same, that I largely get the sovereignty aspect from the public sector, but I think also for private companies it's important when we think about freedom to operate,
Yes.
independence in your, or at least a certain degree of resilience in your supply chain. It
Yes.
should be important as well. I mean, I heard some
No, no,
larger
I mean,
companies speak about
here
it, but
exactly. In the in the private sector, it's the resiliency and the data gravity of things.
mhm,
So they're not so much concerned about the data privacy because typically they will have machine data, product data, and so on, which of course is business sensitive, but not privacy sensitive in that sense.
yeah,
But it's like the data is everywhere. They have
yeah,
data in the factories, in
Hmm.
the shops. Think about retailers. They often will have a shop where they have data there, and they need to make sure that data is available someplace else. The factories need to be running 24/7 with millions of euros of damage if the factory stops for 1 minute. So you need very very specific solutions there. I, you know that's they go to the data gravity of things in my sovereign concept.
yeah.
So in a way, sovereign in the way you just describe it, the empowering. Yeah,
Yeah,
yes, I agree.
because when you say they have the data, then what does it mean? Because if it's in some infrastructure I can control, do I really have it? And can I make use of it? Can I take the extract the value from the data I have
Exactly.
and in
Exactly.
time, right? So that's I
The
think it's all
timing.
concerned with the sovereignty
Yes,
topic.
for that, the
Yeah,
time is the key thing.
yeah,
The time they have to make the benefit of the data very often is because the supply chain, all those things, they are really real time things. So then it's important that it's there, and they're probably the public cloud. Next, public cloud data center will not help you; it's a bit too far away. So yeah.
yeah. And this comes even more important when we now talk about AI as well, right? It's an important topic, especially in under the sovereignty aspect. Um, how would you compare it to the cloud sovereignty? Is it the same, or what does it mean in the context of AI? Is it also about the platform, like the technology you use, the data, as we just
Yeah,
discussed, models? What is the
I, th- I think
sovereignty
the
aspects
principle.
of
I think
AI?
the principles are the same. The principles are
Hmm.
not very different, but the impact can be much bigger. Um, I think in the when you talk about the AI, there is still so much we don't know. To be very honest,
Mm,
everybody's learning, and
yeah.
if somebody tells you they are not, it's like, yeah, question them a bit. So it's
Mm,
I think that and the implications of what happens. You think about the data privacy story. You have seen cases. You see when it's gone wrong. You know what happened when the data leak happened. You know what happened. You have the schools. I mean, I've seen a couple of cases in Finland. The data from the schools leaked out, and you have the parents' information, which is bad, but eventually, okay, so you get the people address, telephone numbers, names. That of course should never happen, but you know exactly how it is. But with the AI, like because we don't know what happens if and it's not the AI is the data, of course, the data it uses, but it's also the engines that use the data.
mm,
And what happens if those engines are manipulated the wrong way,
yeah.
right? Like we all know it's about, it's very sensitive. You change a bit the prompt, and it gives you a completely different answer, right?
I mean, if for example, I repaired my bike with the help of ChatGPT, and it
You do?
recommended me some. I did, or I'm doing actually. I'm missing some tools still, but it recommended me some tools and brands, of course. And I wonder,
Yeah.
is it like where does it get? It could be. I don't say it is. It's probably just what they found on the internet, but I wondered, right? And that's I think a very interesting question because you could lead like so many demand when people use such a platform, right? But
Mm.
coming back to the sovereignty and the European Nordics, do you have standout initiatives, or what comes to your mind as like flagship initiatives in terms of sovereign AI in these
Yeah.
countries, from the
So
public sector or private, maybe?
yeah. So first of all, it starts by having the capability of delivering
Hmm.
those in a sovereign way. That's the first thing, right? So you need, you have many layers always. You will have a service on top of that. But if you want that service to once again, sovereign cloud is the service, and cloud is the kind of the terms and conditions. The sovereign is the terms and conditions, right? So
Mm.
sovereign AI is the
Hmm.
same thing. AI is the service, and then you deliver it from a sovereign capabilities. So first of all, having the sovereign capabilities is the first thing, and that's in itself is not easy, because the to provide AI capabilities, you need all these GPUs. You need a different level of infrastructure. Let's
Yeah.
start with basics, which doesn't come by easily. It's expensive. From a data center perspective, it's a whole new game, because the level of power consumption it takes is
Mm.
nothing like before. So basically, when in the past you could fit I don't know, 40 servers in one rack with
Yeah.
normal consumption. Now you just put a number of GPUs, maybe your whole rack cannot take more than, I don't know, 4 or 5 hosts with GPUs. So,
Mm.
and you need the special cooling right up. So that's the first problem, how you build those capabilities outside. And by the way, this problem is not just for
Yeah.
sovereign cloud. Public cloud has the same problem, right? So
Yeah,
it's the same
it
management.
sounds a bit to me like, would you say that it's a bit like with the cloud sovereignty, we have the same issue, but the supply chain, coming back to that, is more complex and less understood
Yes,
so far. What
absolutely.
needs to come together to really have a sovereign AI, right?
Exactly. It's basically, oh,
Yeah.
well, we just build it anywhere. Well, not my friend. I mean, even the public cloud has problems to build like at scale
Mm.
AI. Like think about GPU as a service, right? Selling GPUs. That not something,
Think about
even the
response time
hyperscalers.
of ChatGPT sometimes, right?
There you go, man.
Yeah, but
So
do you have
exactly.
do you know of some initiatives to build platforms for sovereign AI?
So absolutely, we have one. We talk about sovereign AI services, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that context, the services are, first of all, there is a platform that you need to build that has enablement of GPUs. That's the first level of problem. And of course, we know how to build it, but it's
Mm-hmm.
always like you need to have the customer behind it to use it. So but the platform, and then what we are building on top of that, and I think that's kind of would be commonplace, is how you operate the AI. So
Mm-hmm.
we used to we know how to operate an infrastructure environment. We know how to deliver managed services in infrastructure environment, how to manage the operating system, the databases, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But now we are building also how you operate an AI system, which has everything that the operating an infrastructure has, the database, everything. You need also those, but on top of that, you need extras, because there is new kind of streams. You have the data management of things, the data curation of things. You need a bit of new resources, new skills, data scientists or data expert that understand how to. And this is where you just said, Jörg, about how do I know that the recommendation of ChatGPT is right? So you need an
Mm-hmm.
operation that makes sure that in a responsible and sustainable way, what your model delivers is trustworthy and reliable, and it's not biased by the wrong things, I would say.
Yeah, well, coming back to my bike example, you find out. So once you stand there in front of the bike and you realize, oh, there's something missing.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's good if you have a bike and not a
Yeah.
bank or something
And
that
then you go
takes
back to
decisions
ChatGPT and
based on
says,
that.
oh, misunderstanding.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Exactly. Now extrapolate that, like because what you want to build with this sovereign AI, going back to the healthcare case, right? You want to build a system that predicts when do you need to go to make the next health check. That's what you
Mm.
want, right? Or
Yeah.
what is your risk of getting this kind of disease? So you need to do something now. This is the kind of stuff we are all looking for. At least I'm looking forward that somebody will tell me, hey, Paco, you need to go to the doctor now because you know what? Based on your profile, your DNA, and your habits, you are very likely to get a heart attack in one month from now.
More than
That
2 hours.
or 2 hours. That's the
Yeah.
kind of I mean, am I crazy here? I mean, that's what I'm looking for when these AI solutions as a citizen, right?
Not the
From the
heart
health,
attack, hopefully.
not the
I
health
think.
attack. I agree with
Yeah,
you there.
yeah, I understand. But is there one of the governments that we talked about? Is like, are they building a national, maybe national sovereign AI platform, something like that, or do they have that in mind?
I think they are. It's too early for that. I think
It's
that
early.
there are all different organizations are playing. I mean, like I was in a conversation with one of the regions in Sweden, and you realize that it's like everybody's asking each other.
Mm. Yeah.
So they say, okay, but what do you we ask them, what do you need? Okay, well, what do you have? Is the answer,
Mm.
right? So
Hmm.
it's like everybody's trying to figure out. They know it's probably very cool, but very few people know actually what for. And this is a bit, I see it everywhere. Like, yes, of course, they have nice ideas, but having a platform and so on. But it's like I said, platform is the enablement, but it will never be the driver. The driver needs to be a business need. Like I
Yeah,
said,
the
Yeah.
market needs
citizens,
to
the market, yeah.
approve it. Yeah.
Exactly. Citizens need more information about their health, or the bank systems need more protection against fraud, or logistics need a better way to predict failures in the logistics chain. These are the real
Hmm.
things, and then we have platforms to implement.
Yeah, I mean, we need a first mover, right, in this space so that there's somebody that has done it, and then it's often also easier for others. In that context, how do you see the European collaboration in that space? I mean, you say the Nordics, they ask each other
Yeah,
who's doing what. How do you see it on a European level? How are we
yeah.
doing
I
there?
think. I mean, to be very honest, I wish it would be much more. I mean, I had conversations with. I was we bump into one. It's OVH, right? OVH.
Hmm.
It's probably the first one certified European public cloud provider, and that was a great
Mm.
thing that we have one now. Might be the first one actually, and the first and only we have. And we have lots of IT service providers in Europe, but public cloud certified, we have at least one, I know, OVH. So this is once again I go to a bit. Of course, the corporate world needs to move and so on, but here is where I see we are still like what 20 different states and countries. So I think here is where I see the European Union can do a lot. So what they're doing so far is giving a framework. They have the sustainable or responsible AI framework, which is fantastic, world
Hmm.
class, the first on its own, and that's great. Set the grounds and send what people should think about. But if you want to foster the ecosystem, you need to do a bit more. You need to kind of articulate a bit more the people coming together and collaborate. It's very hard for us here in Finland to go and talk to without any help. I mean, sure, we could do that, of course, with you guys in the Mesh Cloud and whatnot. But
We will be
I'm
there.
missing. And we'll be there, because you have great ideas. But I think we need to a bit of a European Union initiatives on this respect with practical initiatives to put together people like us. I would miss it a bit to make it happen a bit more, a bit faster. It probably will happen at some point, but I think it can be accelerated with the right catalysts from the government, from the official organizations.
Yeah. Looking forward to that. It's something where I also very excited if we will really create this EU ecosystem of
Yeah.
providers, platforms, and collaboration that I think will is necessary actually
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
compete in the geopolitical landscape. Yeah, we're
Yeah,
closing
looking in
at the time.
at the time,
Oh,
which passes again very quickly.
Yeah.
If you look at Europe and you say, okay, there's three things that need to happen that will really help us to advance digital sovereignty here, um, what would
yeah.
they be?
So I think that first of all, having a clear regulation about it from EU, I mean, with the European context, of course, that would
Mm,
be great because then we know exactly how it looks like. Now it's a bit, there's a room for interpretation. So that would be rule number one. The second thing would be, I would say, if we want to talk about the European level, it would be good to have a more concrete framework for cooperating across different providers.
mhm,
To be very honest, there was a catalyst, a private catalyst. It was called VMware.
Hmm.
They wanted to do this to catalyze across because they were providing VMware technology to everybody. But of course, that's not happening anymore. Yeah. So who is going to be the catalyst now to put these vendors together to create a real interaction between Gaia X is also like winding down. So who's going to be the catalyst to help to build the European thing?
Like the standard
Yeah,
technology to connect
yeah,
everything
yeah,
easily,
exactly. Enabling
frictionless.
that
Yeah.
models, trust models. I think Francesco talked a lot about trust models. That's very important when the standard of trust across countries. That's something that there are ways to do that, technology speaking, but we have a standard. And then the third thing I think would be invest in um, in in AI technologies from Europe. So like solutions, like
Mm.
what solutions? Not we'll figure out the platform, we'll figure out the thing, but what are the AI solutions we want to develop in Europe? This is a very interesting topic, and once again, as we are learning, and we are like on the start point, like that would be
You mean in
very good.
building new solutions, new
Yeah,
European AI
exactly. What
solutions?
use cases
Yeah.
would make sense for European to implement? And if you think about starting with the public sector, there are lots of out there like trust systems, healthcare systems, and that will give you a because it will need to come from that angle. It doesn't help if you build platforms with no specific purpose. You need a purpose for the platforms. Then you can do something. So
So
purpose.
if there's one message that you would like to share with decision makers, enterprises, or the next generation, even, so what would you give them as an advice for digital sovereignty?
That's a hard one.
Yeah,
I'm not
it's
a.
of course we will
I know.
decide it all over. So
But I mean,
take
let
your
me
time,
just give. Yeah. So
but not too much.
not too much. No. I think you need to. Um, it's like a bit like you said, Jörg. The choice. What do you want to do?
Hmm.
Like where do you want to? I mean, the sovereign will not fix you anything. It's just a. So you need to think about what do you want and and how do you need it. Then sovereign will help you. But you need to think
And then
about
act on it as well, right? I mean,
exactly.
that's get into
Yeah.
action is, I think,
Exactly.
always
Exactly.
the important part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank
Perfect.
you.
We have one last question that we always take from our previous podcast guests. So you will also get to ask that question to the next one. But the one we have from last time is, where do you think platform engineering will be in 5 years from now? So we've
Oh.
moved a bit from and we didn't go into the DevOps discussion, but we've moved a bit from DevOps into platform engineering now, right? And where do you see that development going within the next 5 years? And I think
That question
Yeah.
was from Matthias and Alyosha from Hellman Logistics last time
Right.
in episode 4. Yeah.
Fantastic question, actually, Jerry. I mean, that's our topic. So
Yeah.
what's your
maybe the
take?
next podcast.
How long
But
do
yeah.
we have? Oh, only 2 minutes.
Okay. So I think platform engineering 5 years. So the way I see platform engineering now, organizations are starting to realize what it is.
Mhm.
It's been like out there for all, but I think only now organizations realize. So I think platform engineering will, in 5 years, will be heavily steered by AI to have um, a lot of ready-made choices for developers that don't even need platform engineering. So platform engineering will be, designing what the solution is, and you will have AI to build it. But platform engineering will be just about designing, like thinking the solution that works for one organization. AI will do it.
So it's more like a choice of like a toolbox where you can choose what you want to build, and then
Yep.
it
Yeah.
just yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's
Yeah.
like no, I mean, I think because I think platform engineering is the people, right? I'm thinking about
Mm.
the people here, the platform
Yeah.
engineers,
Hmm.
and that they operate the platform, but it's about the engineers. So the
Mm.
engineers will have different tools, and because platform engineer by definition works always on a customer environment, they will have the tools to figure out and the brains to figure out the right solution for that customer context. But the implementation and operation of that would be, like, in my mind, heavily done by AI
Mhm.
because it's easy to repeat once you design it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I think that should be another session, platform
Yeah.
engineering and AI. Then, what is your question for our next guest?
Ooh, I don't know who it is, right? So I just need
No,
to
No.
throw. Okay,
that's the
got
exciting part about it,
it.
or one of the exciting parts.
Okay. The next question for so I would ask him or her, uh, what is the as we have been talking so much about AI, I got inspired there. So what is the AI solution that would improve his life by 10%.
Oh,
His
nice.
quality of
Great.
I
life
like it.
by
Yeah, it's very
10%.
specific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Very nice.
get
Then,
the solutions there.
yeah, thank you very much for that, and thanks first of all for all your insights into, well, into your world, into the world of the Nordics. Also, I really like the aspect of the strengthening the European ecosystem, enforcing like the European
Thank you so
culture,
much.
and seeing what we can do here together. I think that's a very valuable perspective that we are all, that kind of connects us as well, and why one of the reasons why you're here. So thanks, Francisco, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Was a great conversation as usual, and already looking forward to the next one from my
I
side.
mean, I have to say thank you very much for having me. It was very pleasant and very nice driven conversation.
Yeah.
Good work, guys. Nice job, and absolutely looking forward for the next one.
Yeah, thank you too.
Perfect.
And
Then
then,
Thank you.
yeah,
also bye bye to
see you
our
soon.
audience
You guys.
and see you next time.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.